Okay, let's talk Tiffany, Moon, and the Westcott family. This may feel a little exhausted for everybody else, but to kind of just recap everybody on what's been going on over the past several days between Tiffany Moon and Karmeron Westcott and Karmeron Westcott's family. So as we saw at the reunion, Cam came in, she had her little pink binder, and she had all her receipts with Tiffany. This is where it gets frustrating for me because I used to like Cam and I had Cam on my show and I had a very pleasant conversation with her. And we even saw everything that happened with Leanne last year, especially at the reunion, and Cam being like, I'm your friend, but what you did and what you said was wrong, et cetera, et cetera. Now we have Karmeron Westcott, who at the most recent reunion was basically trying to school Tiffany Moon about culture and racism. I said this on the Instagram live that I did last week at No Filter with Zack, which the recording is saved if you want to watch that and hear everything that I had to say, which was my initial reaction before I really saw how her husband and her brother had really jumped into the conversation. And so she's basically trying to school Tiffany Moon on what it means to be a minority. And so for me, from my POV, my point of view, because I have, I'm in the minority category in two different ways. One, I am Hispanic. I did not grow up with privilege. I didn't grow up with money. I didn't grow up, I grew up in East LA. That's, not the most glamorous part of Los Angeles, but that's where I'm from. I'm from the hood, and that's where I was raised, and I worked very hard to attain a lot of the privileges that I have in my life now, but there were a lot of obstacles that were set against me. In addition to being a minority, I also am gay, which is another, it comes with its own barriers that, prevent you from being very successful in America. I think for me personally, I've never really liked to look at those as barriers. I've always focused on the end goal. I've always focused on the mountain peak. I understood on some level that people had other advantages that I didn't have, but I was like, I'm not going to focus on that. I'm not going to look at that. I'm going to look at my goal, my end post, and that's just what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on my journey. I'm going to stay in my own lane. I'm not going to compare myself. I'm not going to look at how much harder or how much easier things are for other people. I'm just going to stay in my lane, do my work, and work my ass off. I may have to work 10 times harder than homeboy down the street. I may have it 10 times easier than homeboy to my left. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to focus on that. I'm just going to focus on where I want to go and the goals that I want to achieve, and I'm going to stop at nothing to get there. And I think that helped me be a lot more resilient. It helped me learn to be tenacious. It helped me learn how to be a better problem solver. And I think compared to somebody that is very privileged, I have so much more of an advantage because I learned those skills. I learned how to bounce back. I learned how to get knocked down and get smashed into the ground again and again and again, and how to build myself up over again and again and again. And it's interesting because now I live, in a building where I have a lot of, trust fund babies, that don't understand the lifestyle that I came from, or I have friends that don't understand the world that I came from. And so sometimes I do get frustrated because I look at them and I look at their privilege, but I also see that level of privilege sometimes comes with a lack of real world experience and beatings. And maybe that's just my mindset. I like to focus on the positive. I like to focus on the things that I gained as a result of the challenges that I had to overcome. I understand not everybody looks at the world that way. That's just how I approach things. So when it comes to Tiffany Moon, I have a lot of respect for her because she did come from a very, culturally, there's a term that I would hear a lot growing up called whitewash, which is for people like my family who has been in the States for, I'm fourth, fifth generation here. Most of my family is all here in Los Angeles. We don't really have too many families, too much of a close, immediate family in other countries. All of our family kind of on my mother's side and on my father's side. But I look at somebody like Tiffany Moon, who doesn't have that multi-generation in America. Her parents came over here, so the culture was very strong. And I would imagine things were very challenging for her growing up, but she still moved past a lot of those barriers and blocks that were set in front of her. And she was, like she said, a Doogie Howser. She graduated early. She worked her butt off and attained the level of success that she has now. And I have a lot of respect for somebody like that, for somebody that wasn't just handed things, but had to work really hard and overcome barriers and had to learn a different language. Like, so much respect for that. So much respect for Tiffany Moon. Whereas, with Cam, I think sometimes if you don't understand another person's background and lifestyle and where they came from, and you can't appreciate how much harder they had to work, it becomes like, then just don't comment on it because you don't understand it. So for Cam to come into the reunion and to try to school Tiffany on culture and racism, I think totally out of line. Total miss. I think what happened was she felt like Tiffany Moon was a know-it-all, which she is. Tiffany Moon is a know-it-all, and I think Tiffany probably wouldn't even deny that. But I think she was tired of constantly being corrected by Tiffany Moon and constantly getting that know-it-all energy from her. And so she was like, well, I'm going to come to the reunion and I'm going to give her a little taste of her own medicine, and I'm going to, correct her, and I'm going to reprimand her. And it's one thing to come in and like reprimand somebody's grammar or somebody's behavior. It's another thing to try and school them on their own culture. That's where I think Cam really overshot her shot. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, and as if that wasn't cringy enough, and I'm very thankful that Andy like kind of shut that down. Like, Tiffany was very good at putting Cam in her place, but Andy then really shut that down and was like, all right, we're done with the binder. We're done with the receipts. Like, we're moving on. But it didn't end there. It looked like there was some resolution between Cam and Tiffany. And then Tiffany did go in a little bit on Cam again on Twitter. Like, I think Tiffany started the little tiff that ensued post-reunion on Twitter, but it really escalated and went to a whole different level when we had Court Westcott, who jumped in and basically accused Tiffany of racism by saying anti-racism is racism, which it isn't. And again, I feel like these conversations about race and culture, and these are very complicated issues that can't be just glossed over in 2 minutes or 30 seconds on a podcast. Like, these are multi-layered issues, and you have to understand that like everybody comes to the table from such a different position, from such a different level of experience, from such a different level of exposure. Most people have lived in a bubble, and they've only lived in the bubble of their own culture. And some people have had other advantages in comparison to others. But at the end of the day, we have to acknowledge those differences. We have to acknowledge that some people know a little bit more than we do, and we have to just be willing and open to have these conversations. Tweeting somebody that they're racist is not the way to do it. And that's why I'm very much anti like cancel culture, because I think canceling somebody without having an open dialogue and working through that issue, it doesn't solve anything. It ends the conversation. You slap somebody on the wrist, you embarrass them to the point where they're like, okay, I'm just going to be quiet and not say anything, but not really express how I truly feel or ask the questions that I really have inside, because now I'm afraid to actually speak out, and now I'm just going to, either do what I'm told or go hide under a rock or whatever the case may be. I just don't think it fosters any sort of growth and evolution for either party or for us collectively. Court Westcott, Cam's husband, totally wrong with the racism stuff, and, he ended up, I think, taking his Twitter account down or something, where he was definitely called out for it. And Tiffany Moon was like, dude, what's your fucking issue? And as if that wasn't bad enough, because like, come on, why are you even, and somebody even pulled up a tweet about how Cam was like saying that the husbands shouldn't get involved in the housewife drama because it makes them wussies or pussies or something like that. And then people were like, well, yeah, your husband jumped into a fight that didn't even involve him. And now he's, trying to claim that this Asian woman is racist, which that's not to say that an Asian woman can't be racist. But in this case, you need to look in the mirror, sweetie. But then, as if that wasn't bad enough, Chart, and whoever these parents are that they named their kids Court and Chart, like, what the fuck is that about? So I digress. So Chart chimed in, and he's suggesting that Tiffany should be fired because he's like, Tiffany, I've seen you at my house and you were blackout drunk, and then the next morning you just rolled up into work all hungover. And I wonder what your patients would think if they knew that you were getting blackout drunk and then just going into work the next morning. First of all, none of your business. Second of all, how do you know she was blackout drunk? How do you know she went, like, how do you know all of these details? Or are you just spewing shit to spew shit? So he was basically suggesting that she should be fired Tiffany ended up blocking Chart on Twitter, rightfully so. Like, come on, dude. Like, it was just these men trying to jump in and, jump into Cam's fight. And, like, I don't know. It, like, as Cam said, it was very, wussy energy. I don't want to say pussy energy because I feel like pussies are very strong because they push out babies and they are very, pussy appreciation, hashtag pussy appreciation. So I don't like to use that word in a derogatory way, but I guess wussy might be a better word. I don't know, whatever. So Bravo finally released a statement saying that they're in support of Tiffany Moon and that anti-racism is not racism, and that, they didn't explicitly say they're distancing themselves from the Westcott family, but they definitely said that they are in support of Tiffany Moon, which I thought was interesting. It pretty much implied that the Westcott family's behavior was not to be tolerated, but they didn't exactly say that, and we don't know yet what the ramifications of this will be yet. I think as a whole, the Westcott family really just shot themselves in the foot. I think Cam really burned herself from... It just didn't seem like she was willing to have a conversation with Tiffany Moon or understand where Tiffany was coming from or understand her background or understand her culture. It just very much felt like she was trying to come in and school Tiffany on what she thought was wrong or inappropriate or, whatever the case may be. I just think she approached it the wrong way. I hope that it's something that can be worked through, but it doesn't look like it will be, because Tiffany Moon ended up saying that, like, her lawyer released a statement saying that none of this would be tolerated, which interestingly came out before Bravo even released a statement. So I think it looks really bad for Cam. And I don't think that Cam has a bad heart, but she's starting to show some of those layers underneath the onion that, may have been hidden in the past, and now they're going to be front and center. And I think that it's really bad timing considering everything that she went through with Leanne last season and how she was like, I support Leanne. Leanne's not a bad person, yada, 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 but what she did was wrong. And now it's like we're seeing Cam in that hot seat. So it's interesting to see. And I don't know how much Real Housewives of Dallas can even recover from a lot of this. But so over the weekend, Tiffany Moon also updated her Instagram bio to say previous cast member, which everybody responded to, and they're like, oh my God, it says previous cast member, which basically means that she's exiting the show and she's not returning. But if you'll remember, she also gave an interview to Distractify back in March, basically saying that she likely wouldn't be coming back to the show anyway because she doesn't see how it would fit with her schedule, that she was really spread thin this most recent season. She works a full-time job. She doesn't need the money. She doesn't need the fame. Like, I think she's good. She's okay, but I thought she was a great addition. I thought she brought new energy. She brought new life to the show. She was able to really hold her own despite being the new girl and despite kind of being on the outside a couple of times. I think she really was able to stand on her own 2 feet and juggled working a full-time job and filming the show. So she updated her bio to say previous cast member. Everyone freaked out. Everyone was like, oh my God, she's leaving the show. Then later on in the early afternoon, she changed it again to specify from being previous cast member. She then changed it to specify she was a season 5 cast member of Real Housewives of Dallas. And then it changed again for the third time by the end of the day. She updated it to say cast member, hashtag Real Housewives of Dallas at Bravo TV. Now, the third change makes me think that Bravo's the one that made her change it the last time, because she probably was like, I'm done with the show. I don't want to move forward, especially after all of this drama with Cam. This just doesn't feel worth it to me. I don't feel connected to the other women. I don't think she is connected to any of the other women, maybe aside from Deandra a little bit. I don't even know who I would say were Tiffany's allies on the show, to be honest. But so what I think happened is she was like, I'm done with this show, so I'm going to change it so that it can say previous cast member of Real Housewives of Dallas. And then once it kind of was picked up by all the blogs, once media outlets were starting to speculate whether or not she was actually leaving, once all of the bloggers and influencers and podcasters and Instagrammers were reposting it, basically assuming that this was her way of exiting the show, I think that's when Bravo called her and they're like, yo, you can't do this. You're still technically under contract. We need you to update it so that it says this. Because we technically haven't released you from your contract, which, if we remember from the Vanderpump Rules filings, you have like a 6-month hold with the network, and then you have a 1-year non-compete agreement that prevents you from doing any other similar shows with any other network that's not authorized or approved by Bravo. So I think they had her update it. And so she was like, okay, let me update it to specify I'm only a season 5 cast member. So then people were like, well, it technically doesn't say that she's returning for season 6. So it could be that she's leaving, but why would she update it? Is it because she's negotiating her contract? Like, all the questions were still up in the air. So I think because it still wasn't clear, that's when Bravo came back in and was like, listen, we need you to actually say that you're a cast member, hashtag it RHOD, and tag at Bravo TV, and this needs to be in your bio per your contract. Because as we saw when Brandi Redmond tried to announce her exit from Bravo, basically saying that she was like, I choose happiness, I choose my family, et cetera, that's when Bravo released their statement, and they're like, no, Brandi Redmond is still very much a part of the show. And I believe it's because she was still under contract. They still had episodes that they were airing. They still had the reunion that they needed to film and air. So I think they're just cracking down on this a lot more. I don't think they want to lose Tiffany Moon. I don't think Bravo can afford to lose Tiffany Moon at this point. But I don't know what the show would look like moving forward. It's clear Tiffany Moon doesn't really have much interest in returning to the show. I'm sure Bravo's trying to make her a very sweet deal to return. I'm pretty sure they're offering her a lot of money, offering her a little more creative control over the cast, or not creative control, but like offering some more allies or additional diversity or other women that would be more aligned with her status in Dallas, that aren't just like, these pretty posh Westcott and Deandra women that, run the circle of Dallas. So I don't know what the future of Real Housewives of Dallas looks like. I think it's gotten so dark. I think racism has become very prevalent on the show, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if it's something that's being featured on the show, as long as there are conversations that are being had and we're continuing to push that conversation. But it looks like Tiffany Moon doesn't want to come back. It looks like Brandi Redmond definitely wants out. I don't think Brandi Redmond has an interesting enough storyline. I think bringing the drama with her husband just feels a little too, I don't know if dark is the right word, because we've gone very dark on the Housewives shows in the past. Taylor Armstrong's husband committing suicide, Kim Richards' alcohol addiction struggles, getting arrested, affairs. Like, we've tackled a lot of these heavier issues on the shows in the past. I don't know if it's even worth exploring further. And I don't even think Brandi would be willing to put her marital issues on the show, especially if she's posting about choosing happiness and prioritizing her family. It sounds like Brandi wants out. Tiffany wants out. I don't even know if there's a way that they would want to bring Cam back after all of this, beef has transpired on Twitter with her husband coming forward, the things that she said at the reunion. Now her her brother-in-law, who also, so let's dive into that stuff, because it also looks like Kary might even be on the chopping block. One, because she just wasn't that interesting or exciting. She wasn't that likable this season. And not only that, but there were some receipts that were dug up, some old posts that Chart, Cam's brother-in-law, made on Instagram, where he was he was celebrating Cinco de Mayo, and in another one, he was in the Bahamas wearing like luau attire with like a hat, and it was like tiki vibes in front of an ocean. And the other one was, Cinco de Mayo. It looked like it could have been like at a Mexican restaurant. But he was hashtagging these things. Your culture is my costume. Cultural appropriation is bullshit. And Kary liked those posts. Kary liked the photos. Obviously, I'm assuming she probably read the caption, or, I mean, I don't know. It could be that she didn't even see the captions, but I don't know how confident I am in that. I think she knows who Chart is, and I think she probably doesn't disagree with some of his stuff. I think she's like, oh, I hate cancel culture. Oh, cultural appropriation is stupid. Like, I don't know. That's just the vibe that I get from her. I could be totally reading the situation wrong. I could be way off. But again, it's like, if you have a Hispanic background, see this man dressed up and he's, celebrating Cinco de Mayo and basically and hashtagging it cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation is bullshit. Your culture is my costume. Like, it just doesn't. That's what you're endorsing. Like, I've liked a photo because I liked the photo, and then I read the caption, and then I was like, ooh, I'm going to unlike that because I don't want to endorse that message or whatever the case may be. I've done that on Instagram several times. There are two different posts that Kary has been shown to like that are both very similar, both hashtagged cultural appropriation. So I don't know if she could even, I don't even know where she stands on any of this, especially considering her involvement and Cam's involvement in the whole Leanne scandal last year. And I'm curious to see what Leanne thinks of all of this, to be honest with you. But it looks like we're ready to lose Tiffany. We're ready to lose Brandi. We're ready to lose Cam. We're potentially ready to lose Kary. So it's like, who's left? Stephanie and Deandra? Well, that's fucking boring. And can we even, like, what does that even look like? I feel like some of these shows just need to wrap. I think Dallas is one of the ones that needs to wrap. I think OC is one of the ones that needs to wrap at this point. Like, we just need to be like, we had a good run. We had fun. Let's move on and pivot. We have Potomac. We have Salt Lake City. We have these newer shows that are in their early 4th, 5th, 2nd seasons that I think could carry us moving forward. Like, we don't need 15 different housewives shows on the air in the same year. Like, I think it's okay to send them off like Real Housewives of Miami and Real Housewives of DC. Just like be like, that didn't work. We gave it a try. It had a good run. Thank you, next. Even though now we're bringing Real Housewives of Miami back, and I don't know how I feel about that. Still here? Good, because I've got lots more tea to spill, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you're always up to date. And if you want full weekly news breakdowns and episodes of the show, you can always subscribe to #NoFilter with Zack Peter on iTunes, Spotify, and pretty much everywhere podcasts are available. So not just snippets, but I'm talking about 30 to 60 minute full episodes, deep dives, news breakdowns, unfiltered interviews, and more. So be sure to subscribe and give us a follow at NoFilter with Zack on the Instagram for the latest scoop, funny memes, polls, and more. Get ready. And you can always keep up with me at Just Plain Zack all over the internet. My DMs are wide open. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye.